guys, it's Kira. Welcome to the weekend and welcome to another weekly vlog. It is currently Saturday morning and this morning is super rainy and it is just filling me with so many cozy vibes, and I just feel like this weekend is going to be a very chill, homey weekend, just embracing this season because I feel like we are now in peak autumn time. It is like mid-October right now, and this week I have been blown away on many occasions by the beauty of this season because I feel like we're now fully into that time when leaves are like completely changing, and I've seen quite a few trees which have this incredible effect where I think one side of the tree must be way more exposed to the sunlight, and so like a side of it has gone like bright orange or bright red and it looks like fully autumnal, but then the other side of the tree that's slightly more shaded is still a lot greener, and there is just this incredible like ombre effect of the leaves that you can literally see the seasons changing in one single tree, and I just think it looks so beautiful, especially when Jay and I go for our evening walks and it's like golden hour and the light is just catching these like super warm toned leaves, and then the warm light just makes everything look so vibrant, and I'm just so here for it. And I feel like these times of year that are so beautiful, like when spring flowers come up or when autumn leaves change, they're so gorgeous, but they can be here and gone within just a couple of weeks, and so I really want to try and make the most of them and just appreciate it because, as I'm sure many of you are sick of me talking about, I spend so much of my year looking forward to this very season and I just want to make the most of it. So with that said, I'm aiming to have a super cozy autumnal chilled out weekend and just embrace the vibes of the season this weekend. So that is what we're going for and I'm very excited about it. Although with that said, last weekend I did a reading vlog dedicated to murder mysteries, which I did feel was very seasonal, but this weekend I'm wanting something a lot more like cozy and wholesome, and I have looked at my shelves and I have nothing. Nothing is matching the vibe of the weekend for me, so I think a trip to Waterstones is definitely going to be in order because I just feel like this weekend needs a good book and I'm in desperate need of it. It doesn't necessarily need to be an autumn book necessarily, but a book which captures the cozy, wholesome vibes of the season is what I'm looking for, and unfortunately my shelves are sorely lacking in books of that kind, so I need to go and find one, which is really just an excuse for me to go book shopping. But I have had a good look, really made sure that there was nothing that matched those vibes on my shelves, and there isn't, so I have no choice but to go book shopping. So that is on the agenda for today, as well as going to a yoga class. But before we get into all of my weekend plans, I wanted to let you know that today's video has been very kindly sponsored by Ana Luisa. As many of you know, Ana Luisa is a jewellery brand that I absolutely love and have been working with for quite some time now. The reason I love them so much, aside from of course how gorgeous their jewellery is, because obviously that is a key factor in choosing a jewellery brand that works for you, but the other reason I love them so much is because they are an environmentally friendly jewellery brand, which is something that's really important to me, and they also have such a wide and diverse range of pieces, diverse in terms of both style and price. So there is something for absolutely everyone, every single price range, and of course every single style that you might be looking for. Now, because of course this year has been a little bit overshadowed by looming sort of negative talk about cost of living crisis and just like how things are going to be much more expensive, I'm personally trying to spread out my Christmas shopping over this year because I'm just aware of the fact that it is going to be a little bit more expensive this year in general to like buy food, to heat the home, all of those kinds of like essential things. And so rather than leaving all of my Christmas shopping to December and having to cover it in one pay, which is what I would normally do, I'm going to try and spread it out between now, October, and then December. And so Ana Luisa is one of the places I will be turning to do some of my Christmas shopping this year because I just think their pieces are so gorgeous. They come in these adorable little pouches, so perfect for storing but also makes a really nice gift. And I just feel like jewellery is such a special present to give to people because you can just like, I don't know, give someone something that really like suits their personality and their style, but also is a present that will last a really long time. And I can personally attest to that because Ana Luisa's jewellery is on me all of the time. I'm currently wearing 2 of the Ana Luisa necklaces that I absolutely love, and also a pair of Ana Luisa earrings, and these earrings are with me 24/7 every single day. I wear them to yoga, to hot yoga, to the swimming pool where they're going to be in chlorine. I wear them in the shower, I wear them on runs, in the rain, in the wind. Every single weather that could possibly have been upon my body has also been upon these earrings, and these earrings are still still looking as gorgeous as they did the day that I put them in. So the jewellery is such a long-lasting, high-quality set and I absolutely love it. So I've picked up a few pieces for myself, which I'm just obsessed with, so much so that these studs that I've picked up I think would make perfect second ear piercing earrings, if you know what I mean. And I'm like this close to going and getting an ear piercing because I think that they would just make such a gorgeous addition to my ears. So there we have it. I love Ana Luisa and I'm sure many of you guys will as well. And if you're thinking of trying them out or doing some shopping for yourself or for anyone else, if you're also going to get ahead with your Christmas shopping, then you can use my code KiraFoster10 to get 10% off on Ana Luisa. Heading back into the weekend, like I said, I'm going to a yoga class today, so my jewellery is going to be coming with me on that journey, of course. But I'm going to a hot yoga class, which is so going to be appreciated. First of all, because I feel like since doing my half marathon, I have been so stiff and sore. I'm like a walking injury, so yoga in general is definitely a very, very, very much needed thing. But hot yoga on a cold day is just one of the most luxurious things that you can do, I think, because it just feels so like the heat is all encompassing, it's so cozy, but then when you come out it is, I feel like being reborn, because you're in like I go to hot pod yoga, so you're in like a sealed pod, like a tent when you're doing the hot yoga, and it's really dark and warm inside, and then the tent gets opened up, the zipper opens and you step out into the rest of the studio, and so you're suddenly like freezing cold and it's bright lights, and I can only assume that must be what it feels like for newborn babies to be born, because it is like a shock to the system. But I'm very excited to go for that yoga class. I'm going with my friend Sarah, and then I think I'm going to drag her along to go get a new book, get some coffee, and potentially get an ear piercing if I can be brave enough to make myself get a new piercing this weekend. So with that said, it's time for me to head out, so I'll catch up with you later on for yoga. Well, thanks to a hot yoga class that was so intensely sweaty, I genuinely contemplated why I was even there. I was so sweaty, it was such a tough class, but it was really, really good. And then also on top of that, the most intensely windy walk home that I have ever experienced. I'm looking a lot more bedraggled than I was this morning, but just got back from town with Sarah. We had a very fun yoga class this morning. I think we both genuinely like questioned what was going on when we decided to sign up for the class while we were in the middle of it. But by the time you leave and you like feel really good about yourself, you start to think, I might book onto another one. And I feel like that is just how exercise works, especially with things like hot yoga and running that are like hard and sweaty, and you really question all of your sort of like motivations in the middle of the workout, and then at the end you're like, God, I am so good, I'm glad that I did that, and then it sort of like starts to cycle again. So we had that yoga class this morning. Sarah said never again at the end, but I'm sure I'll be able to drag her back. And then we went into town for some lunch. We ended up going to Spark, which is like our go-to place in York because it means you don't have to find one place to suit everyone. I ended up getting some chips and a Biscoff cherry jam bagel, which was so delicious but so overpoweringly sweet that I only ended up eating half of the bagel and then the chips. And then we also made a trip into Waterstones, and I convinced Sarah to join me and help me choose 2 books, which I'm very excited to get into. So the first one is actually the Waterstones thriller of the month this month, and it was The Christie Affair, which I felt like was quite topical given that last weekend I was reading murder mysteries, and specifically I read Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. But this one is obviously not an Agatha Christie, but it's about Agatha Christie's life herself rather than one of her murder mysteries. And the blurb says, Agatha Christie's world is one of glamorous society parties, country house weekends and growing literary fame. Nan O'Dea's world is something very different. Her attempts to escape a tough London upbringing during the Great War lead Nan to a life in Ireland marred by hidden tragedy. After fighting her way back to England, she set her sights on Agatha because Agatha Christie has something Nan wants, and it's not just her husband. Despite their differences, the 2 women will become the unlikeliest of allies, and during the 11 days that Agatha goes missing, events unfold that not only throw a light on her mysterious disappearance, but also on Nan's own tragic secret life. So I feel like there's a lot that goes into this book, and it's not actually that long. It's only 350 pages basically, so quite a short book in the grand scheme of things, and obviously slightly focusing on the very notorious incident where Agatha Christie herself went missing, and that is still a mystery that's unsolved. No one really knows what happened or why, but then other things as well. So I feel like this book sounds very interesting, not necessarily cosy, so I might not pick this one up first thing this weekend, but if I manage to read my other book then I might turn to this one. But it definitely sounds interesting, and when I saw that it was thriller of the month, I thought I might as well pick it up because it sounds great, and also I just love this cover. It's so mesmerising. So that was the first book that I picked up. Then the other one is ticking the box of a cosy read that I'm hoping to get to this weekend, and it is One Night on the Island by Josie Silva. I always doubt myself when I'm saying this author's name because she has the most gorgeous book covers that I just think are so pretty, but so does another author called Rosie Curtis, and specifically they both have books which have very similar titles and very similar covers. So the other one by Josie Silva is One Day in December, and then Rosie Curtis has We Met in December, and I'm sure you can agree they're very, very similar. So I'm always doubting myself when I pick up new books because I can never remember which author it is that I'm meant to be talking about, but it's Josie Silva and the title is One Night on the Island, and this book just sounds super cosy. So Josie Silva has also written, as I mentioned, she wrote One Day in December, and then she has also written one called The Two Lives of Lydia Bird, and I feel like if I was to summarise her style of romance writing in one sentence, it would be one day can change everything, and it's all about these one major life events that kind of change the course of everything that happens afterwards. And quite often these are not necessarily positive occurrences, or they're things that don't seem like they're going to lead to anything good in the moment, and then it's all about how everything changes and unfolds around these really catastrophic or pivotal life moments, and how they basically change the course of everything. So this one sounds really interesting and very, very cozy. So just based on the setting of an island, I feel like it's going to tick my box of a cozy vibes book. So it says, Cleo writes about love stories every day. She just isn't living one of her own. When the editor of her dating column asks her to marry herself on a remote Irish island, a sensational piece to mark Cleo's 30th birthday, Cleo agrees. She's alone, but not lonely, right? She can handle a solo adventure. Cleo arrives at a luxury cabin to find a tall, dark, stubborn American who insists that it's actually his. Mac refuses to leave and Cleo won't budge either. With a storm fast approaching, they reluctantly hunker down together. It's just one night after all, but what if one night on the island is just the beginning? I just think that sounds so fun. I feel like it's going to be a sort of a enemies to lovers kind of romance, but with a super cozy cabin setting with a storm on an island. I just think this is going to be everything that I'm looking for this weekend, and I absolutely cannot wait to dive in. So I obviously have made myself a cup of tea and I'm going to dive right into that book because I really just think it's going to be so cozy and exactly what I'm hoping for from this weekend. So with that said, cheers. tell from this extremely dark kitchen, but it's actually the most beautiful morning this morning. The sun is shining and it is just exactly what I was talking about yesterday with like the beautiful like golden sunshine landing on the autumn leaves. It is just absolutely exceptional. So very excited to have woken up to such a beautiful autumn morning because me and Jay are going out today to go and watch the Yorkshire Marathon, which is running through York today, which is going to be so nice because yesterday obviously it was very windy, very rainy, and I really felt for all of the like prospective marathon runners because it would have been terrible conditions for running a race yesterday, but today is actually pretty perfect because it's obviously still very cool since we're in October. I think the maximum temperature is going to be like 14 degrees, so still very cool. You're not going to overheat too much, but really bright and sunny, and I'm sure like the countryside, because it starts in York city centre, goes out to the countryside a little bit and then loops back around to finish in the city centre as well. So I feel like it's just going to be like a really beautiful crisp autumn morning for running, which I think should be perfect. Not to say it's not still going to be hard, because running a marathon, I feel like no matter what weather conditions, is bound to be quite difficult, but I think at least from what I can imagine and my experiences with running, I feel like when a day is beautiful, it can lift your spirits and kind of carry you through the difficult races. Whereas if you have like terrible weather and you're feeling really down because you're struggling with the race, it just like adds to the mood and it just makes it even more difficult. So I'm very happy for all of those runners that they will have a nice morning to run their marathon on, and we are going to make the most of the morning as well and go and enjoy it, because I feel like it's quite typical, at least for the last few weeks, where the sunshine comes out and is gorgeous in the morning, but then by the afternoon it's like cloudy and overcast. So we thought we might as well tie the two things together, go out and watch some of the runners going by, get a coffee and just enjoy the beautiful crisp autumn morning, because why the hell not? And then when we get home this evening, or rather this afternoon, I'm going to be focusing all of my attention on doing some more reading of One Night on the Island. I did start this book last night, but I got distracted with helping Jay editing something, and then we were also watching Death on the Nile with dinner, and before I knew it, it was time for bed, because I feel like weekend evenings just zip by in like the blink of an eye. So the evening was gone before I even knew it. So I read a few chapters right after I got home and told you that I'd picked this book up, but I haven't actually gotten much further than about 20 pages in, so I'm right near the beginning still. But what I've read so far has definitely been like reaffirming my choice of this book. We've just set up the main character Cleo going off to this island for her work trip to write this article about marrying herself, and she has like a bit of a choppy trip there. The storm is coming in, the sea is really wild, she doesn't have the best journey to get to the island, and when she gets there she's a bit frazzled and just ready to settle into this weekend, spending time with herself and just enjoying the ambience of the island. And then of course, as we know from the blurb, something, or rather someone, is going to come and mess those plans up. So very excited for that certain someone to turn up at this cabin, because I think it's going to be so fun, so predictable, but in a way that I think is really comforting with romance books, because they are, generally speaking, so predictable. But I love it because I think it's so nice to just like be able to go in and, without having ever read a book before, still feel that sense of like familiarity with the characters, and this like sense of knowing that no matter what kind of like comes in and messes things up, everything is going to work out positively in the end. And while some weekends I'm so in the mood for like mysteries and plot twists and thrillers and all that kind of stuff, other weekends I think it's just nice to turn into a book that is just going to be positive, happy, and you kind of know what you're getting right from the off, but it's just nice because then you can just get lost in the book and just enjoy the experience. So that will be my Sunday afternoon, but for now it's time to go and enjoy the gorgeous autumn morning and grab a coffee because I am parched. autumn and winter. I am so not made for cold. I cope with it so badly, and I am literally just living in this green hoodie at the moment because it is so thick and cozy. But even then, I still need to have a hot water bottle because we're still resisting putting the heating on, because as I'm sure many of you know, cost of living crisis, expensive heating bills, I just don't want to be dealing with that right now. So I'm making do with this, but it's so cold and I'm just not made for it. But one tip that I think I did see was that every night when you make dinner, if you've used the oven, to open the oven door and let the heat from the oven out into the kitchen once you turn it off, because otherwise that heat is just going to get absorbed back in anyway, so you might as well make the most of it. So I am going to make dinner in a minute, and I will definitely be taking that advice on and opening the oven door after I finish cooking, because it can take all the heat I can get at the moment. I could just use every little ounce of it. So all that said, had a really fun time this morning going and watching the marathon runners. It was a lot of fun, very inspiring, because people running so fast, and even people that were not running fast are still running 26.2 miles, and you know, a 2.5 hour marathon and a 6 hour marathon are both still a marathon. So very impressive, and it was fun to go and cheer for people and give them some motivation. But on account of the cold, thank God for my coffee cup that I ended up getting, because whilst it was an expensive £4 coffee, which I think is a little bit extortionate, I was grateful for it at the point of having a nice little hand warmer to keep me cosy while we were watching all of the runners go by. But of course, since coming home, I have edited a YouTube video and then got on with some more reading of One Night on the Island, and I'm now fully into the story. We're getting more established with these characters, and we have this very tense relationship going on between our main characters of Cleo and Mac, who are both in this lodge that has been basically double booked, but because of a storm, the boat that comes to the island once a week is not going to be coming, so they basically have no choice but to stay in this lodge together. And although they have opposing personalities, they have to try and work out a way to live harmoniously. And this is really reminding me of a book that I listened to on audio a while ago, and I'm trying to think, what was it called? Let's see if it's in my library still. I feel like it's called Christmas at something. Christmas Every Day by Beth Moran. Thank God for that. Okay, so Christmas Every Day is basically, I think, a weirdly titled book because it's actually not much about Christmas at all, to be honest, and it looks like a very festive cover, but that's actually very misleading. But essentially we have this woman who is escaping a difficult family and romantic situation, so she moves from a big city into a very small town, and she thinks that she is renting this cottage that her grandma used to own, but the cottage is also actually inhabited by a neighbour where there's adjoining land, and this guy I think is also called Mac, so that seems to be the go-to name for men who are a little bit difficult to get along with in these romance books. But essentially in this book we have this group of people who are kind of trying to get along in this situation where they have no choice but to spend time with each other, and then it blossoms into a romance. And so now just thinking about the fact that the two main men are have the same name is obviously another similarity, but just the vibes I'm getting from those two books, and the fact that we have this tense relationship, but you know what it's going to blossom into, is the vibe that I'm getting from this book. And I actually really liked that Christmas Every Day book. It was a nice fun listen, easygoing. I really enjoyed it. So looking forward to reading some more of this one, but as I mentioned, it's time to make some dinner. I think we're probably going to watch some Game of Thrones while we eat, and then I will try and get some more reading done this evening with some snacks and tea, of course. Just about to take myself out for a run, so I thought what better time than now to give a quick reading update, because I must admit I've not read as much of this book as I would have liked to over the weekend, but I have read almost 100 pages and I'm really liking it. It is just so cozy, so angsty in terms of this tense relationship between these two people trapped in this cabin together, but it's fun angsty. You can tell they're just minorly annoyed by each other, but realistically there's no like real problems going on, and it is also like dropping in some backstory bits about these two characters and setting up their like tragic histories and like giving you all of these reasons to like sympathize with them, whereas without these backstories you might just think that they were a bit grumpy. And I just feel like it's like a fun way of adding in like a bit of grit to the story without it being too serious or too dramatic, because of course Josie Silva has written a book called The Two Lives of Lydia Bird, which is quite a dark romance, or yeah, I suppose it has romance in it, but essentially the plot of that book is that right at the beginning, the main character's fiance or boyfriend, I can't quite remember, is killed in a car accident right on their anniversary. They were like going to meet each other for dinner, and then this guy passes away. And Lydia's life is then split in two. It's kind of like the reality of her situation as a grieving partner, and then she has this almost like dream world where she's living as if her partner is still alive. And it is very tragic, very well written, and just such a really like interesting but like very raw portrayal of grief. Whereas this book has like an element of grit to it in the characters' backstories, but in reality it is definitely more in the light-hearted side of romance than something like The Two Lives of Lydia Bird. So it's exactly what I was hoping for, and I'm excited to read some more. But as is always the case in the work week, as soon as I start work on Monday, I find myself with very little time for reading. But I am going to try and do some when I finish work this afternoon. I'm taking myself on a lunchtime run today so that I have time when I finish work to hopefully get some reading done before Jay gets home. But I am also realising that we are way overdue a tea taste test. So as a bit of like pre-run hydration and motivation to get out there, I have made myself a Bird and Blend tea, and today I thought it would be fun to try milk oolong chai, which contrary to the name of the tea doesn't actually have any milk in it. The ingredients are oolong tea, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, cocoa shells and chili. And I feel like that sounds like a very like cozy, warming blend, which I need to give me a little bit of like fire in the belly and encourage me to get outside because it's kind of chilly out there today. So I have brewed my tea, and without further ado, oh, it smells so gingery and cinnamony. Oh my god, I love this. Let's give it a taste test. Oh, it is just so cozy. It smells exactly like how it tastes, which is just like warming, spicy, slightly sweet and just delicious. There is a Bird and Blend tea that I think I tried in the advent calendar last year, which was a chili chocolate one, I'm almost certain, and this is kind of giving me those vibes where it's like just like subtly spicy but not overpowering and just very cozy. Bloody lovely. And I also have made myself a very quick batch of banana flapjack. So I'm going to enjoy this tea, eat this flapjack, give myself some energy, go out for a quick lunchtime run, finish the work day, and then hopefully do some reading. So it may well be because my birthday happens to be on the 21st of May, but I always just have this association with the 21st day of the month being like the best day of the month, and this month, October, is no different because today, Friday the 21st of October 2022 to be precise, is an excellent day, is it not, Oscar? Because today is the day that Taylor Swift's new album, Midnights, was released. It was released at midnight Eastern time in America, which was quite handy for me because it meant that it was released at like 5 AM in the UK. So I woke up at about 6 AM, made myself a cup of coffee, went downstairs, lit some candles, set the mood, and got right into listening to Midnights. And oh my god, did that album deliver. I was kind of worried about it, I'm not gonna lie, because Taylor Swift is obviously kind of known for her like eras and the fact that like her albums all have very different vibes, and so that can be a wonderful thing, but it also means you don't necessarily know what you're getting from each album. And so although she is a like certified superstar and all of her songs are like categorically good, they're not all like exactly your like top vibe, if you know what I mean. And I feel like because of that, it's very easy to pick favourite albums. For example, for me, her previous two albums, Folklore and Evermore, are just exactly what I would look for in music. They are so like whimsical and story-led and just like I can't even put words on how good those albums are, but I love them so much. And so coming off the back of those two albums, I thought Midnights had a bit more of a poppy look to it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it as much. But what I actually found was so great about this album was that I think she talked about how it was based on like different midnights throughout the like last few years, and that was kind of like built on different stories. And so what I felt like this album did was it did have like a very distinct vibe to it, and it almost has like a bit of a like synthy pop thing going on in some of the like backing tracks and the way that music is used to support the lyrics. But although it has that like vibe going through all of the songs, what it does have is that each different song kind of feels a bit reminiscent of other music that she's created, and like almost like as if songs have already been out there, little pieces of them have been like flipped on their head and used to like add to these new pieces of music. And so you'll feel like you're getting new stuff, but then at the same time it also feels as though you're getting like this nostalgic throwback to songs that you already know that you're gonna like. So it's kind of like it's got this new and old thing going on. And so although it's definitely a pop album and it's not as like acousticy as like Evermore was, for example, it is really, really lovely to listen to, and it manages to create like this very like new sound, but also, like I said, bring that like element of nostalgia through into it. And I can't wait to keep listening to it. I've listened to it like 1.5 times before I started work, and then Taylor decided to release 7 additional tracks on top of the 13 tracks that were released at midnight. And so we got 8 AM UK time, 3 AM Eastern time, we got 7 new tracks, which I like, although I don't think that they're as good as the songs in the actual like original album. But I've just been listening to the songs all morning while I've been working, and I'm loving it. I think I feel so happy because, like I said, I just didn't know if I was going to enjoy this album as much as I had enjoyed her previous two. And although I would still say my Taylor Swift album ranking is Evermore is number 1 and then Folklore is number 2, I think this one definitely has capacity to hold my number 3 spot, which previously I would have probably given to either Red or Lover. So the fact that this is like up there as potentially number 3 definitely shows that I'm really liking it. And I'm also giving it grace in the sense of like it's given me a very good first impression, but songs always grow on you, because right now I recognise like the tunes but I don't know the lyrics yet. You can't sing along in the same way that you can sing along to songs that you've like known for months. And so I have a feeling that although it's already highly ranked, it has capacity to grow in my heart as well, because as I get to know the songs more, I think I'll enjoy them even more. So very happy about that. If you're interested in my favourite songs so far, for anyone who's also a Taylor Swift fan, my top 3, going from 3 to number 1, is in third space, we're going with, it's tough because my 3 and 4 are very, very close. Let me just like revisit. I've been making lists and notes because I feel like it's so hard. I got a number 2 and a number 1 is set. 3 and 4, they're a difficult, okay. Right, at this moment in time, I'm going to say 3, Sweet Nothing, 2, Bejeweled, 1, Snow on the Beach featuring Lana Del Rey. I knew from the very second that she announced that track title that that song was going to be a favourite of mine, but when I heard it, it was just exceeded all expectations, and that one is going to stay my favourite, just as Champagne Problems has remained my favourite all the way through my love of Evermore. It's just some songs just speak to you and you know they're just going to stay favourites, but I really liked all of those songs. And then my number 4, which was like closely tied for number 3, was Maroon, which I wasn't expecting to love but actually was such a pleasant surprise. So absolutely fabulous Friday morning, and to be quite honest, I kind of needed this because I've had a bit of a hectic few days in the sense that last week my windscreen got hit by like a stone. Jay was driving the car and he was driving past like a wagon, and I think a stone just like flew up at the windscreen and caused a little chip on the windscreen, and then we got someone to come out and repair it. They said it was fine and that the repair would mean that the chip wouldn't get any bigger. Lo and behold, less than 1 week later, Jay went out to the car in the morning to go to the gym, and the tiny little chip that had been repaired was now a horizontal crack across the windscreen, which now needs a full windscreen replacement. So I'm working this morning, and then at lunchtime I'm going out to the garage to go and get my windscreen repaired. And obviously it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, you know, cost of living is high, we're getting towards Christmas. I happen to have a lot of like family birthdays, so both of my siblings have birthdays in October. Then one of Jay's sisters has a birthday in October as well. Jay's birthday is in November. Then I have my grandma and my stepdad have birthdays in December, and then it's Christmas. My car insurance renews in December. I have my MOT next week, and it always feels as though every single like financial thing that could happen to the car always falls into like one section of the year where money is already a bit tighter because there's obviously like present buying to do, and I could have really done with not having a cracked windscreen to pay for, but alas, such is life. So I'm just going with the flow because I can't do anything about it now. The crack is there and it has to be fixed. But what I will say is that I was very grateful for Taylor Swift's new album this morning because it's been very uplifting, and I'll be taking my headphones with me to sit at the garage while they replace my windscreen, and I'll be listening to Midnights and feeling like I'm living my best life despite having to pay for something that was a real inconvenience in my life. But there we go. Happy Friday. Haven't done any more reading since I last spoke to you. Well, I think I did a little bit more actually. The last time I spoke to you, I was just about to do some reading, and that I did, and I'm still really loving One Night on the Island. I just think it's a really nice and cozy book. I'm going to try and hopefully get through most of it this evening before the next weekend, because I have plans for an exciting reading vlog this weekend, so I need to get that book out of the way. But for now, it's time for the work day, and then time to go and get a car, a new windscreen. So here's to that. Later, and I'm pleased to say I now have a fully intact windscreen, which, you know, is quite a small thing in the grand scheme of life, but I feel better knowing that my windscreen is not about to shatter on me every time I get in the car. So big relief, and just glad to have ticked that one off the list, hopefully with no more windscreen issues to follow, because this time last week I also thought it had been fixed, and then a few days later, big fat crack. But I'm hoping that this is the end of my windscreen troubles, and I'm also just putting it out there, let's hope that my MOT goes smoothly next week and that I don't have to fork out £1 million on car repairs. But that aside, while I was obviously waiting for the windscreen to get fixed, I did manage to get some reading done of One Night on the Island, so much so that by the time I got home I was almost done. So I then got back to work for the afternoon, and I have now finished work for the day and decided that the first thing I was going to do was get right on to finishing this book. And it was a really fun reading experience. I love island settings, especially for romance books. As many of you will know, I'm a huge fan of Jenny Colgan's Island series, which starts with Christmas at the Island, or the Island Christmas, and then there's Christmas at the Island Hotel, then there's a summer wedding at the island, all those kinds of islandy type books, and they are all so wholesome, and I often describe those books as being like Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow vibes in book format, because it's just like tight-knit communities of people that really care about each other but also know everyone's business, and sometimes can be a little bit annoying, but in a way in which you kind of always know that people are like rooting for everyone. And I just love the community spirit that I get from those books, and I just think that the island setting lends itself so well to that kind of community vibe, whereas this book manages to do that as well. But like I mentioned, I think Josie Silva is a little bit more of a gritty romance writer. So whereas Jenny Colgan's books are so like honey sweet wholesome vibes, this has like the community spirit of those books, but then with a little bit more, I guess, like depth and grit. And although I went into this one expecting like I guess a semi-predictable romance book, it actually ended up being less linear and less obvious and less predictable than I was expecting. And so while I would have been very happy with a predictable romance, because like I said, you go into romances knowing what you're going to get but enjoying it anyway, this one actually ended up being a much less predictable reading experience, but an enjoyable one nonetheless. And I'm just really happy to have read this book. I'm definitely going to be adding this one onto my list of like go-to romance rereads, because I just feel like it's such a lovely setting, such a nice story, and I really enjoy the fact that we have like these two protagonists of Cleo and Mac, and we got to split between their perspectives. And I just think in a romance particularly, that is just such a nice way to get to know your characters. And I just, yeah, big fan of this book. So that is my Friday pretty much done. This evening I'm going to undoubtedly listen to Taylor Swift's new album at least a couple more times, and then this evening myself and Em are going to be recording a podcast episode which is entirely dedicated to unpicking and theorising about and evaluating all of our thoughts on Midnights. So if any of you guys are as interested in Taylor Swift as us, the podcast is always linked in the description box, so you can check that out. That episode will probably be up like early next week, if not over the weekend, but I don't want to make any promises. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I feel like this has just been a very like chilled out, cozy week with a few mishaps on account of my car, but on the most part just a lovely few days of chilled out reading and enjoying the most like rainy, cold, cozy autumn week that we've had in a long time. So with that said, just wanted to give you one final reminder that today's video has been very kindly sponsored by Anna Louisa, and if you would like to check them out, then follow the link in the description box and use my code KiraFoster10 to get 10% off on Anna Louisa. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for a spookier reading vlog.